What if the greatest figures of history never truly disappeared? Not in memory, but in blood. Imagine walking past someone on the street, unaware they carry the DNA of Genghis Khan, Cleopatra, or Charlemagne. The conquerors, queens, and emperors, who shaped civilizations, left more than ruins and legends. They left descendants. Today, their blood flows in ordinary people, world leaders, and even celebrities. Some lineages are well documented, while others remain hidden, waiting to be uncovered by science and chance. From the vast Mongol steppe to the palaces of Europe, from forgotten tombs to modern cities, the legacies of history's most powerful figures live on in the present. These aren't just names in textbooks, they're part of us, still shaping who we are today. This is the story of famous figures and their descendants alive in the modern world. When we think of history, we imagine stone statues, faded manuscripts, and names carved into textbooks. But history is not only written in words, it is written in blood. Every conqueror, every ruler, every queen and king left something far more lasting than their monuments, their DNA. And astonishingly, many of those lineages still flow through people alive today. For centuries, ancestry was preserved only by stories passed down through families, often exaggerated, sometimes entirely fabricated. But in the modern age, science has given us new tools to look into the past. DNA testing and genealogy have revealed connections no one could have imagined. The truth is simple, yet extraordinary. The past lives inside us. Think about it: human beings reproduce, generations unfold, and bloodlines scatter like rivers flowing into oceans. If one man or woman lived 1,000 years ago and left descendants, chances are their bloodline has multiplied beyond imagination. This is why geneticists say that anyone of European descent is almost certainly related to Charlemagne, the great medieval emperor. His empire fell, but his blood lives on in millions. At the same time, some lineages have become mysteries. Cleopatra, the last queen of Egypt, remains an enigma. Did her descendants survive? Did her blood travel beyond the sands of the Nile? Historians debate, but myths persist. What is even more fascinating is that famous lineages do not always remain in castles, in palaces. Royal blood has seeped into ordinary families, sometimes hidden for centuries. A farmer, a shopkeeper, or even someone living next door might unknowingly carry the genes of kings and queens. In this way, history never really ends. It continues, silently, invisibly, through the people of today. Some wear their ancestry proudly, while others have no idea of the power hidden in their blood. This story is not just about the past, it's about us. The legacy of humanity's greatest figures is not confined to dusty museums. It breathes, it walks, it speaks. Through their descendants alive in the modern world. In the 13th century, a man rose from the windswept steppes of Mongolia who would change the world forever. His name was Temujin, though history remembers him as Genghis Khan, the Great Khan. He was more than a conqueror. He was a force of nature, carving the largest land empire the world has ever known. But Genghis Khan's greatest legacy was not just measured in cities conquered or empires destroyed. It was written into the very DNA of humanity. Genghis Khan had many wives and children, hundreds, perhaps even thousands. His sons and daughters were given authority across vast territories, ensuring his bloodline spread alongside his empire. Unlike other rulers, Khan deliberately placed his offspring in powerful positions, marrying them into noble families across Asia. Through this strategy, his genetic legacy became unstoppable. Centuries later, science uncovered something astonishing. Geneticists discovered a unique Y chromosome pattern, originating in Mongolia, carried by millions of men across Asia. The numbers were staggering: around 16 million men alive today may be direct descendants of Genghis Khan. That is nearly 1 in every 200 men on Earth. No other figure in history has left such a vast genetic imprint. From Kazakhstan to Afghanistan, From northern China to Iran, echoes of Khan's lineage can be traced. Some families proudly claim descent, displaying genealogical scrolls and oral histories passed down for generations. Others may never know, carrying the blood of the great Khan without a single clue of their connection. This raises an extraordinary thought. Genghis Khan's empire eventually collapsed, but in a way, he still rules today, through his descendants scattered across the globe. His empire of blood has outlived his empire of stone, and it wasn't just his DNA that survived. His laws, his military tactics, and even the postal system he created influenced civilizations for centuries. But unlike these cultural legacies, his genetic legacy is alive, breathing, and multiplying. Think of it: a modern businessman in Beijing, a shepherd in Afghanistan, a shopkeeper in Turkey, all may unknowingly share the same ancestor. The man who once united the Mongol tribes and swept across continents with fire and steel. In the story of famous figures and their descendants, no name looms larger than Genghis Khan the Conqueror, who became the world's most prolific father. Few figures in history inspire as much fascination as Cleopatra VII, the last queen of ancient Egypt, draped in legend, immortalized by Rome's historians, and remembered as both a seductress and a strategist. Cleopatra's story ended in tragedy. When she died in 30 BCE, Egypt fell to Rome, and with it ended not only a dynasty, but perhaps an entire bloodline. Cleopatra was a member of the Ptolemaic dynasty, a Greek royal house descended from one of Alexander the Great's generals. Her ancestors ruled Egypt for nearly 300 years, blending Greek and Egyptian traditions. But Cleopatra herself was different, fiercely intelligent, politically shrewd, and determined to preserve her throne in a world dominated by Rome. She bore, at least for children, Caesarion her son, with Julius Caesar, and 3 children with Mark Antony, Alexander Helios, Cleopatra Selene, and Ptolemy Philadelphus. Yet the fates of these children were as dramatic as her reign. Caesarion, the boy who was hailed as King of Kings, was executed by Octavian, the future Augustus, sealing Rome's victory. Alexander Helios and Ptolemy Philadelphus vanish from history, their ultimate fate unknown. But Cleopatra Selene, her only daughter, survived. Taken to Rome, she later married King Juba, II of Mauritania, in North Africa. Through her, Cleopatra's bloodline may have continued, blending into the royal houses of Africa and possibly Europe. Some historians believe her descendants lived on 4 generations, though records eventually fade into obscurity. This uncertainty has fueled centuries of speculation. Could modern families in the Mediterranean or North Africa trace their ancestry back to Cleopatra? Could her bloodline, thought lost in the chaos of Rome's conquest, still flow today in people who have no idea of their royal heritage? Unlike Genghis Khan, whose genetic legacy is visible in millions, Cleopatra's bloodline is fragile, shrouded in mystery. Yet her story endures precisely because of this uncertainty. She remains a queen who defied Rome, a mother whose children carried her legacy beyond Egypt, and perhaps a distant ancestor to people alive right now. The truth may never be fully uncovered, but the possibility that Cleopatra's descendants still walk among us keeps her legend alive. History remembers her as the last pharaoh, but her blood may yet prove she was more than that. She was the beginning of something we have yet to rediscover. In the year 800, on Christmas Day, a tall and imposing king knelt inside St. Peter's Basilica in Rome, as the chants of monks echoed through the ancient church. Pope Leo III placed a crown upon his head. That man was Charlemagne, and from that moment, he was no longer just king of the Franks. He was the first Holy Roman Emperor, the man who would shape the destiny of Europe. Charlemagne's empire stretched across modern-day France, Germany, Italy, and beyond. He united much of Western Europe under a single rule for the first time since the fall of Rome. But his greatest legacy would not be his empire of laws, churches, and armies. His true legacy would be his bloodline. Charlemagne fathered many children's history, records at least 18, though the true number may have been higher. Through his legitimate heirs and countless illegitimate ones, his lineage spread rapidly across the royal courts of Europe. His descendants married into nearly every noble house, weaving his blood into the fabric of kingdoms for centuries too. Today, geneticists and historians agree on something remarkable. If you are of European descent, there is a very high chance you are related to Charlemagne. In fact, some researchers say that nearly every living person of European heritage is his descendant, thanks to the mathematics of genealogy. Over 1,000 years, bloodlines spread, branch, and merge until, eventually, they connect us all. But Charlemagne's legacy is not just distant and abstract. Some of the most famous figures of history proudly traced their lineage back to him. Napoleon Bonaparte claimed descent. So did many kings of France, Germany, and Spain. Even today, monarchs such as Queen Elizabeth II and King Felipe VI of Spain can trace their ancestry to the great emperor. It is a thought both humbling and awe-inspiring. The man who once dreamed of uniting Europe through sword and faith has, in a sense, succeeded. His empire may have fallen centuries ago, but his descendants live on, woven into the very DNA of millions. Charlemagne is remembered as a warrior, a builder, a ruler of destiny. But in the end, his greatest conquest was not land or titles, it was time itself. A millennium later, his blood still flows, making him not only the forefather of Europe, but perhaps the ancestor of us all. In a world that has traded crowns for constitutions, it may seem like the age of kings and queens belongs to the past. Yet look closely, and you'll see that royal bloodlines still endure, alive, powerful, and woven into modern life. The monarchies of today are not relics. They are living connections to rulers who once shaped entire civilizations. Take Queen Elizabeth II, for example. Until her passing in 2022, she carried a lineage that stretched back through centuries of English monarchs and beyond, to William the Conqueror and even Charlemagne himself. Her children and grandchildren, now the modern faces of the British royal family, carry with them the echoes of medieval courts and ancient dynasties. Across Europe, the same is true. King Philippe VI of Spain traces his bloodline back to the great Habsburg emperors who once controlled vast stretches of Europe and the New World. King Harald V of Norway can trace his ancestry back to Viking chieftains, men who ruled the seas with axe and sail. Even the royal family of Denmark, one of the oldest monarchies in the world, continues a bloodline unbroken for more than 1,000 years. But Europe is not alone. In the Middle East, the Hashemite dynasty of Jordan claims direct descent from the Prophet Muhammad, linking modern rulers to one of the most influential figures in human history. In Japan, the chrysanthemum throne remains the oldest continuing hereditary monarchy in the world, with traditions stretching back over 1,500 years. What makes these royal families extraordinary is not just their survival, but their adaptability. They no longer rule empires with iron fists, yet their bloodlines command respect, fascination, and influence. Their survival, through revolutions, wars, and centuries of upheaval, is a reminder of how deeply people value continuity with the past. Even more fascinating is the web of connections between these royal houses. Marriages between dynasties have linked Europe's monarchs together into a single vast family tree. It's said that almost every reigning European monarch today is a cousin of some degree to the others. These surviving houses of royalty are living proof that history is not gone. It sits on thrones, waves from balconies, and speaks through the voices of kings and queens. They are the last keepers of bloodlines that once ruled the world. When we imagine the descendants of kings and conquerors, we picture crowns, palaces, and dynasties stretching through time. But history has a way of scattering bloodlines in unexpected directions. Many royal heirs did not sit on thrones. Instead, they vanished into ordinary society. Their children married farmers, merchants, and commoners. Over centuries, their noble blood diluted into the population till one day, their descendants were no longer royalty, but ordinary families living unnoticed. Modern genetics has revealed just how extraordinary this hidden legacy is. Studies show that nearly every European of Western descent is related to Charlemagne. Millions in Asia unknowingly descend from Genghis Khan, and across the Mediterranean, countless families may carry traces of Cleopatra's lost dynasty. The irony is striking. While dynasties rose and fell, their bloodlines slipped quietly into the world, hidden in people who never claimed a title. A shopkeeper in London, a farmer in rural France, or a student in Cairo may unknowingly carry the DNA of emperors. There are stories of people discovering these connections by accident. Genealogy research has revealed that American presidents, like George Washington, Franklin Roosevelt, and even Barack Obama, shared distant royal ancestry. Ordinary families in Canada and Australia have traced their roots back to medieval monarchs. Sometimes, a simple DNA test reveals that someone shares a direct link to historical giants once thought unreachable. The spread of these lineages makes sense when you consider the passage of time. Generations multiply, families intermarry, bloodlines branch like trees, until nearly everyone shares a common ancestor somewhere in the past. This means that royal heritage isn't reserved for monarchs, it is spread among us all, and yet most will never know. The carpenter building a house, the teacher in a classroom, or the traveler walking through a crowded market, might all be descended from rulers who once commanded armies and built empires. Their legacy is silent, written not in crowns, but in blood. This hidden truth reshapes how we view history. The divide between rulers and the ruled is not as wide as we imagine. The blood of kings does not belong only to the past, it flows quietly through countless ordinary families alive today. Not every royal lineage can be traced with certainty. Some are clouded in legend, conspiracy, and debate. These are the controversial bloodline stories that blur the line between history and myth, where truth is uncertain, but fascination never fades. Take Napoleon Bonaparte, for example. The French emperor rose from obscurity to dominate Europe, but his dynasty was short-lived. His only legitimate son, known as the King of Rome, died young, without heirs. Yet whispers of illegitimate children followed Napoleon wherever he went. Families in Belgium, Germany, and even America have claimed descent. Some presenting documents and DNA tests, others relying only on rumor. The possibility that Napoleon's blood still flows in modern veins keeps his legacy alive in unexpected ways. Even more mysterious are the claims surrounding Jesus Christ's supposed bloodline. Popularized by books like The Holy Blood and The Holy Grail and The Da Vinci Code, the theory suggests that Jesus married Mary Magdalene, had children, and that their descendants survived in secret. While historians and theologians dismiss this as legend rather than fact, the idea has captivated millions. To many, it speaks to a deep desire that the most influential figure in history may still live on through a human family tree. Other contested claims include the Romanovs of Russia, after the brutal execution of Tsar Nicholas II and his family in 1918. Rumors spread that one or more of the children had survived. Dozens of imposters emerged, the most famous being Anna Anderson, who insisted she was Anastasia. DNA testing has since disproved her story, but the fascination with lost heirs remains powerful. Then there are the whispered lineages linking modern families to legendary rulers like King Arthur or even Alexander the Great. Most are unprovable, blending folklore with fragments of history. Yet these myths persist because they offer something powerful, a bridge between the ordinary and the extraordinary, between the present and the timeless past. What makes these controversial claims so compelling is not whether they are true, but what they represent. They remind us that history is not just a collection of facts, it is also stories, mysteries, and the longing to connect ourselves to something greater, whether proven or not. These bloodlines continue to haunt and inspire. They are a reminder that sometimes the most powerful legacies are the ones that cannot be fully explained. In a world driven by technology, democracy, and equality, one might wonder, why do bloodlines still matter? After all, kings no longer command vast armies, and emperors no longer rule continents. Yet, our fascination with ancestry, with the lives of our ancestors' famous or forgotten, remains as strong as ever. Part of the reason lies in identity. To know where we come from is to know who we are. For centuries, rulers claimed legitimacy through blood, using ancestry as proof of divine right. Today, while crowns no longer decide nations, heritage still shapes how people see themselves. Royal families maintain influence not just through power, but through symbolism. They are living links to a past most of us only read about, but bloodlines matter in more personal ways, too. Genealogy has become a worldwide obsession. Millions of people take DNA tests each year, hoping to uncover hidden ancestors. Some find royal connections, while others discover unexpected ties across cultures and continents. Every result is a reminder that our stories are bigger than we imagined. Bloodlines also remind us that history is not as distant as it seems. Genghis Khan's descendants walk the streets of modern cities. Charlemagne's DNA flows through millions. Cleopatra's possible heirs remain a tantalizing mystery. These connections make the past alive, not just a story in a book, but a legacy pulsing in our very veins. And perhaps, on a deeper level, bloodlines matter because they connect us all. As generations pass, lines blur, and genealogical webs stretch wider. Scientists say that if you go back far enough, every human alive today shares common ancestors. In this way, the kings, queens, and conquerors of history are not just ancestors of the powerful, they are, in some sense, ancestors of us all. So when we speak of famous figures and their descendants alive today, we are not only talking about palaces, dynasties, or royal ceremonies. We are talking about something far more universal, the truth that history lives inside us. The past is not gone, it breathes through every heartbeat, every family, every life alive in the modern world. Bloodlines are not just about who came before us. They are about who we are and who we might become.